Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons, where we try and take a darker turn with the things that we do here. If that interests you, if you really like edgy characters, please like, share, and subscribe. Without further ado, we're going to get into the last of the expert classes, the Bard, that was released in the 1D&D playtest. This video is going to be a little different than my previous videos. A lot of this is just going to be me ranting and raving about the things that I don't like, especially considering a lot of the things about the Bard in this alliteration have really broken my heart. So I'm really just going to kind of go through some of the things that I like and some of the things I don't like about the Bard in general and why I think 1D&D really ruined that. First and foremost, I want to talk about what a Bard is. A bard is some sort of performer, some sort of entertainer, someone that captivates an audience. Whatever that audience may be is really not as important as what the bard does to affect them. If you watch the original Game of Thrones series, Littlefinger is the perfect lore bard. He manipulates and he does all these great things with nothing else than the own usage of his words. A lot of bards do use words, like William Shakespeare is a bard. He motivated crowds and made them believe things that were fantastical. And all he did was speak. Whether you're using music or not really doesn't matter. What matters is how you affect large groups of people. And that's what a bard is. You're someone who manipulates things that are uncontrollable. Being a bard, you learn to accept that a lot of the things you're going to do are going to be within that field, which is why a lot of charms and illusions are really inherent into being a bard. They're very trickery-esque, they're very, very mercurial, they're very mischievous. That's really a big draw into the bard, because we love those characters that take chances and really poke at the hierarchy and nobility. And that's what's inherent in the bard, and that's why it's so easy to make a bard an adventurer or a hero, because you take those chances, and that is really part of what a bard should be. Once you've developed your own concept of what a bard means, you really got to pick spells that kind of reflect that, or really should, at least in our opinion here. But the problem is, most of the campaigns you're going to play, a huge portion of the monsters you're going to fight are undead, or they're fiends, or they're resistant, or flat out immune to charms and fears and circumstances like that. Inherent to what the bard is, you really are playing the game on a higher difficulty just by picking those spells over damage dealing spells. It is what it is. I like it. I like that challenge. I like that feeling when it finally does pay off. And I like playing in a significantly difficult setting for whatever reason. I guess I'm out to get myself, but that's a whole nother video altogether. What's important is that you pick spells that kind of reflect your class or reflect what kind of idea you're going for. And as a bard, inherently most of the things on the current 5e spell list are illusion and enchantment spells. It works. It makes sense on what they build your bard for. The problem with 1D&D is it's the only things you can select from are divination, enchantment, illusion, or transmutation. So that completely limits your offensive capabilities up until 11th level when you get magical secrets, unless you pick another bard subclass that gives you something or other spells that can do something. It's very difficult, and it really makes it so much harder for the bard to exist and to be very, very exciting in the level of bard you want it to be, unless they start changing or you know definitively what kind of campaign you're in. Because it's not only that a huge amount of monsters are undead and fiends that become resistant or immune to being charmed or feared. You need a certain kind of DM for these spells to work effectively. You need a DM that's cool with your creativity with illusion and charm spells. You need a DM who can look and read the spell description and be okay with the very wildly interpretable language, the non-definitive language that they use that gives a lot of wiggle room for you to do a lot of different things. And you need a DM that's capable of understanding those and putting them into a context that fits the campaign. And on top of that, you need a DM that's not just going to flat out just not make it work or ignore the importance of the ignorance of the monster from knowing what the spell is. That's a big, complex thing to overcome just to use those spells. If you don't have a good DM, if you don't have someone that's capable of understanding that, you really put yourself in a bard at such an unimpressive jumpstart to being a spellcaster. And it limits you, and I think this is something that's absolutely horrible, and I really, really believe they need a bigger repertoire of what they can do in order to be more useful. I think spells and limiting the bard like this is going to greatly limit the amount of times people play the bard, because a lot of situations are going to call for literally anything else to be better. 1D&D has changed the way bardic inspiration works as well. Where it previously was used on the charisma modifier you have, it is now used on the proficiency bonus that you have. So further on, you will get more when you start hitting 6 proficiency at super high levels, but for the most part, you're going to have less. It's kind of unfortunate, and I don't really understand why they did this. One of the things that has also changed is you can't preemptively use bardic inspiration. You can't just give someone inspiration when they're about to undertake something or a task that they're going to start to do. You can only use it as a reaction. Now, that does limit your availability for other options that you might use your reaction for. That being said, I do believe ultimately that's something that would allow people to use bardic inspiration more often, because you know when you'll need it. It's kind of like 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, because if you see the roll and you know your bardic inspiration is going to help, you're not going to use it. But if it might, you're going to use it. But a lot of times, it's one of those things, if you're going to preemptively be prepared for skill checks, then the traditional way bardic inspiration is better for you. You cast it on someone, and then they take their chances and roll the dice. Is it better? Is it worse? I personally think it's worse, because you know when you're going to need it. And it might cause you to go, oh, you know what? My chances of actually making that person pass the save are really not that great. He needs a 5 and I can only give him a D8. It's probably not going to happen, so forget it. Where having the bardic inspiration already on a player would give them the choice to use it. A lot of the times, if you succeed something, you're not going to use bardic inspiration, so there are plenty of times where it just goes to waste. Whether or not it's going to be better at higher levels, I highly doubt. I think this is kind of a bizarre way to work it. Also, you used to get your bardic inspiration back on a short rest after 5th level. Now it's after 7th level, which I think really makes it worse. It makes it that much harder to use it effectively, and you can only use it X amount of times per day, so how often are you going to use it realistically? I think in situations where you have a College of Whispers bard or a swords bard, you will be using bardic inspiration almost constantly on yourself, alleviating your responsibilities to use it when anybody else does, unless it's a rare occasion where you really feel like it. In that aspect, I like it, but you're not always going to be a Whispers bard or a swords bard. You're going to want to be some of these other bards, and this really takes away from that, and it doesn't feel as good as it did before. One of the new abilities you gain as a 1D&D expert class bard is Songs of Restoration, and I hate this ability. It gives you specialized spells that you always have prepared at different levels in your bard career. So at 2nd level, you gain Healing Word, and at 4th, Lesser Restoration, 6th, Mass Healing Word, 8th, Freedom of Movement, and at 10th level, Greater Restoration. The problem is you're limiting the bard's spell list. You're mandatorily giving them this healing sequence of spells. Now you're a healer. Like before, you were always on the lines of being a support or a healer. It was really one of the things that was built into the bard, but this really anchors you in, because now you always have this spell. There is never a reason for you not to have this spell, and you know you have this spell. And so now you're hooked into needing to use the spell because you have it. It dictates you go, instead of being something that can do a lot of different things, now you're a healer. And when you're a healer in a game, it throws you in this bubble or in this cage where that's what you do. And if you like being a healer, great, thank you so much. I love you personally. But if you hate playing a support like I do, this crushes your reasoning to play a bard. Because now you have to go through, oh, I'm going to be a bard, and then nobody else picks this class that has healing. And now you're stuck. And you want to do what's best for the party because they're your friends and you want to succeed. But you have these prepared. So when they go down or they're looking for help, they're looking for you. You can't tell them no all the time. And you can't say, oh, I don't know that spell because my spells are limited and I have my character built a specific way. No. You're a healer. It's part of it. It's what you have to take. It's what you have to have prepared because you always have it. And it's taking the bard in a direction that, although it's not unfamiliar to the kit of the bard, it mandates a responsibility that you have to uphold as a bard. And I hate playing characters that other people get to mandate what I do with. It is not something I enjoy. And yeah, you should be working as a team. You should always be working as a team. But everyone should be doing things that they enjoy. I'm more than happy to play a tank, more than happy to play utility, more than happy to be just the face. But just being a support crushes me. It makes me have no fun and I hate it. I do. But if this is something you enjoy, then this is a boon for you. If this is something you really like, this is better for you. This is more of a reason to play a bard if you haven't played one before. So I might disagree with it, but understand this does give you a lot of options in that regard where you can use those spell choices and pick more supportive, more buffing spells and fall back on these and not have to worry about how many spells you do know because you do have these always. I look at the bard with a lot of love and admiration. I think there's no greater way to be an evil character than to be someone that's always in somebody else's ear. I love the concepts that you can build with it. I love the flexibility with the bard. 1D&D, in a lot of ways, turn you into a super bard, where you're only able to do bard things, which on one hand is great. You do gain the ability to really focus down on enchantment and illusion, but I do feel like that really puts you in a situation where you're losing more of who your bard is. It's harder in a game where casters surpass melees by so much, and to have a caster and just pull away so much from them. And limit them in what they can do. I understand why support class exists and why that type is very useful and why a lot of people enjoy playing them. I get why some people like being healers. It is a great way to stay super relevant, super important, feel protected, and feel this great thing that you're pulling the party together, that you become this like lifeblood, this force that they can always rely on no matter who or what differences they have because they need you. And it's a great feeling. It is. You can really build a lot of characters that really evolve greatly with that. But you're stuck as a healer in my mind. And it's not something for me. So when I look at this class now and I think of what the Bard is in 5th edition as to what it's going to come in 1D&D, I'm heartbroken. This just isn't what I want my Bard to be. Are we going to just be stuck like this where we're constantly healing? Well, if that's the case, then what do we do in combat? We just wait? What are we doing when we're fighting undead? We get so hard diminished with our spell selection. We're going to just shoot crossbows all day? That doesn't seem fun. That's not exciting. Are we going to have to get crossbow mastery? We're going to have to get these other subclasses, these other classes, just to be able to be relevant regularly as a base class? I mean, you look at the cleric, and the cleric has a ton of healing spells, but they also have incredible damage-dealing spells. Are they going to go through the same circumstances? It seems unfair. It seems like they're pulling away from some of the great customization and abilities that the Bard gets with this direction. I hope everyone takes a survey and really rips this part to shreds. I really do. It's just taking away from something I love. But if you're a healer or you only play bards as supports, this might not be too far from your wheelhouse. So by the time this video airs, the survey is already out. So please take the survey, express your ideas. If you agree this sucks, tell them. If you think it's awesome, tell them. If you hate or love any of the other subclasses and the other expert classes that have been revealed, get in there and fight to keep them or fight to get them changed. It's important. The time to do it is now. I appreciate it. Really take your time, get your voice out there. It's something we have to do as a community to make sure we get the game that we love to stay as best as it possibly can and not lose some of the things that we thought were amazing or definitive or reasons why we play certain classes. Take that survey, take the time out. It's worth it. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. It's important to all of us, especially if you agree and or disagree with the videos that we put out about this. Your voice matters. Play it out. Really take the survey. And I want to thank you all. If you made it this far into the video, please like, share, subscribe. Please keep commenting. We love to hear from you guys. It's the greatest thing in the world when we hear your opinions, your thoughts, especially when you have different ideas. It's a great thing to see the other side of the aisle and see what their opinions are and really broaden what we know about the game, because maybe, and I can't tell you how many times I've read some of these comments that I thought were different from what I normally played my characters as or normally enjoyed or looked at spells or abilities and thought they worked this way and saw how other people have used them, and it really opened my mind. So let's keep the discussion going. It's great to contact you guys, to come to have these comments and be able to respond to you. Thank you so much for all of that, and without further ado, thank you for giving a Spooky Kid a chance.